Pay attention to Anna Walshie, 39 years old, walking up the stairs to her bedroom in Cohasset, Massachusetts at 1:30 a.m. on January 1st, 2023. She has less than 4 hours left to live because Brian Walshie, her husband of 14 years, is about to commit a heinous act in the basement of their $1.3 million home. On this night, Anna just wanted to celebrate the new year with a family friend and go to sleep. On this night, Brian had other plans. This is the story of how a man's Google search history became a minute-by-minute blueprint for murder, and how technology testified when no body was ever found.
To Walsh's 6-year-old son revealed a series of Google searches. How long before a body starts to smell? 10 ways to dispose of a dead body if you really need to. Can you throw away body parts?
He didn't call 911. He called Google. Anna Walshie lived for excellence. At 39, she was a rising executive at Tishman Speyer, one of the world's premier real estate investment firms, managing a portfolio worth tens of millions of dollars from their Washington, D.C. office. She'd immigrated from Serbia as a young woman, built a career through sheer determination, learned perfect English, earned her MBA, and climbed the corporate ladder one deal at a time. Her friends described her as magnetic. She walked into rooms and commanded attention, not through volume, but through presence. She dressed impeccably. She spoke 3 languages. She could negotiate million-dollar contracts during the week and host dinner parties for her son's friends on weekends. Anna and Brian had 3 sons, ages 6, 4, and 2, at the time of her disappearance. She commuted from their Cohasset home to Washington, D.C. every week, leaving Monday mornings, returning Friday nights, so the boys could grow up in a good school district, while she built generational wealth for their future. She owned multiple investment properties in her name alone, worth nearly $2 million. Brian's name wasn't on any of them. On New Year's Eve, 2022, Anna invited a close friend over for dinner at their Cohasset home. They drank wine, talked about the boys, laughed about 2022's chaos, made resolutions for 2023. The friend left around midnight. Anna and Brian went to bed shortly after 1:30 a.m., bringing in the new year quietly. 3 hours later, Brian was Googling how to dismember a human body. On paper, Brian Walshie, 47, looked like a successful art dealer. He told people he brokered sales of rare paintings, that he had clients in Europe, that he understood the high-stakes world his wife operated in. The truth was messier. In 2021, Brian had been convicted of wire fraud after selling 2 fake Andy Warhol paintings to a buyer in South Korea for $80,000. He'd promised authentic pieces. He delivered forgeries. The buyer sued. Federal prosecutors charged him. He pleaded guilty and was sentenced to probation, house arrest, and ordered to pay restitution. By January 2023, Brian Walshie was unemployed, on federal probation, wearing an ankle monitor, and completely financially dependent on his wife. He had no income, no business, no prospects. Anna paid the mortgage. Anna paid for the boys' private school. Anna paid for everything. And Anna was pulling away. According to testimony later presented at trial, Anna had been having an affair with a colleague in Washington, D.C., a real estate broker she worked with frequently. Text messages recovered from her phone showed the relationship had been ongoing for several months. She'd confided in friends that her marriage was over in everything but paperwork. On December 27, 2022, 5 days before Anna disappeared, Brian Walshie opened Google and typed, "What's the best state to divorce for a man?" He didn't like the answer. The Google searches prosecutors presented at Brian Walshie's trial weren't random panic queries. They were systematic, methodical, chilling. The 27th of December 2022. What's the best state to divorce for a man? 5 days of silence. Then, in the early morning hours of January 1st, 2023, just 3 hours after Anna went to bed, the searches exploded. The 1st of January, 2023. 4:55 a.m. How long before a body starts to smell? 4:58 a.m. How to stop a body from decomposing? 5:20 a.m. How to embalm a body? 5:47 a.m. 10 ways to dispose of a dead body if you really need to. 6:25 a.m. How long for someone to be missing to inherit? 6:34 a.m. Can you throw away body parts? 9:29 a.m. What does formaldehyde do? 9:34 a.m. How long does DNA last? 9:59 a.m. Can identification be made on partial remains? 11:34 a.m. Dismemberment and the best ways to dispose of a body. 11:44 a.m. How to clean blood from wooden floor. 11:56 a.m. Luminol to detect blood. 1:08 p.m. What happens when you put body parts in ammonia? 1:21 p.m. Is it better to throw crime scene clothes away or wash them? These weren't the searches of a man whose wife had mysteriously vanished. These were the searches of a man cleaning up a murder scene, and he made them on his oldest son's iPad. While Brian was Googling dismemberment techniques, surveillance cameras across Massachusetts were recording his movements. The 1st of January 2023, 6 a.m., Home Depot, Rockland, Massachusetts. Brian, wearing a black mask and blue latex gloves, purchased a shovel, tarp, and duct tape, paid cash. The 1st of January 2023, 10:53 a.m., Lowe's Home Improvement, Rockland. Brian purchased $450 worth of cleaning supplies. Industrial strength bleach, Tyvek hazmat suits, mops, buckets, tarps, drop cloths, a hatchet, a hacksaw, and wire snips. He used his credit card. The receipt was itemized, time-stamped, and later presented as evidence at trial. The 1st of January 2023, 4:15 p.m., liquor store, Swampscott, Massachusetts, 35 miles from Cohasset. Surveillance footage captured Brian throwing heavy trash bags into the dumpster behind the store. He made multiple trips from his car to the dumpster, disposing of at least 10 bags. The 1st of January 2023, 5:30 p.m., apartment complex dumpster near his mother's home in Swampscott. More bags, more trips, more evidence being buried under someone else's trash. Back at the Cohasset home, Brian's 3 young sons were asking where mommy was. Brian told them she'd left early for a work emergency in Washington, D.C. The boys, ages 6, 4, and 2, believed him. Why wouldn't they? Mommy traveled for work all the time. Anna Walshie was supposed to catch a flight from Logan Airport to Washington, D.C. on January 3rd for meetings scheduled on January 4th. When she didn't show up to the office and didn't respond to calls or emails, her employer, Tishman Speyer, requested a wellness check with Cohasset Police on January 4th. Officers went to the Walshie home. Brian answered the door, calm and cooperative. He told them Anna had taken a rideshare to the airport early on January 1st for an urgent work matter. He said she'd texted him that she landed safely. He hadn't heard from her since, but that wasn't unusual. She was busy with work. Police asked for Anna's phone number, her employer contact, her travel itinerary. Brian provided everything. He seemed concerned but not panicked, confused but not evasive. Then, investigators started checking his story. There was no rideshare pickup at the Walshie home on January 1st. No Uber, no Lyft, nothing. There was no record of Anna boarding a flight to D.C. Her phone hadn't pinged any cell towers after the early morning hours of January 1st. Her credit cards hadn't been used. Her D.C. townhouse alarm system showed no entry. When detectives asked Brian where he'd been on January 1st, he said he'd driven to CVS and Whole Foods in Swampscott to buy groceries for his sons. Surveillance footage from both stores showed he was never there. On the 8th of January 2023, Brian Walshie was arrested and charged with misleading police in the investigation of his wife's disappearance. Prosecutors argued he'd lied about Anna taking a rideshare, lied about his own whereabouts, and obstructed the investigation during the critical first 48 hours. Bail was set at $500,000. Brian couldn't pay it. He sat in a Norfolk County jail cell while investigators tore apart his life, one digital footprint at a time. Completed is the case. Search warrants were executed for the Walshie home on January 10th. What crime scene investigators found in the basement was damning. Blood spatter on the walls, blood on the stairs leading to the basement, blood on a support beam, a broken, bloody knife in the basement sink, sections of carpet that had been cut out and removed. Luminol testing, the same chemical Brian had Googled, revealed extensive blood evidence that had been cleaned but not eliminated. DNA testing confirmed it was Anna's blood. On the 18th of January 2023, Brian Walshie was charged with murder and improper conveyance of a human body. Anna Walshie's body has never been found. Investigators traced Brian's movements on January 1st using surveillance footage, cell tower pings, and credit card receipts. Every dumpster he visited was located and searched. In the dumpster behind the Swampscott liquor store, investigators found a hacksaw with dried blood on the blade, a hatchet with biological material embedded in the handle, wire snips, a Tyvek hazmat suit torn and stained, bloodied towels, sections of carpet cut into squares. In the apartment complex dumpster near his mother's home, they found more bloodied towels, cleaning rags soaked in bleach, a mop head with human hair tangled in the fibers. DNA testing confirmed the blood belonged to Anna Walshie. The hair matched her DNA profile. Prosecutors theorized that Brian had killed Anna in the basement, dismembered her body using the tools purchased at Lowe's, transported the remains in trash bags, and disposed of them across multiple dumpster locations to avoid detection. The medical examiner testified that while no body had been recovered, the volume of blood found in the basement was consistent with a fatal injury or dismemberment. At a bail hearing on the 27th of April 2023, prosecutors revealed the financial motive. Anna Walshie had taken out approximately $2.2 million in private life insurance policies, with Brian Walshie named as the sole beneficiary. She also had an employer-sponsored life insurance policy through Tishman Speyer worth an additional $500,000. Total $2.7 million. Brian Walshie stood to gain nearly $3 million from his wife's death. Prosecutors also presented evidence of Anna's affair. Text messages between Anna and her colleague showed they'd discussed her leaving Brian and filing for divorce in early 2023. Friends testified that Anna had confided she was done pretending and planned to serve Brian with divorce papers after the holidays. A divorce would have left Brian with nothing. He had no income, no assets in his name, no custody leverage given his criminal record and house arrest status. Anna owned the properties. Anna had the career. Anna had the life insurance policies. But if Anna died before filing for divorce, Brian inherited everything, which is exactly what he Googled on January 1st at 6:25 a.m. How long for someone to be missing to inherit? Brian Walshie's murder trial began on the 25th of November 2025 in Norfolk County Superior Court. He'd been held without bail for nearly 3 years. On the 18th of November 2025, just days before jury selection, Brian shocked the courtroom by pleading guilty to 2 of the charges: misleading police and improper conveyance of a human body. In his plea, he admitted that he disposed of and did convey the body of Anna Walshie after her death, but he refused to plead guilty to murder. He maintained that Anna's death was accidental, that he panicked, that he didn't know what to do with her body. The prosecution called 47 witnesses over 2 weeks of testimony. State Police Trooper Nicholas Rossi detailed the Google searches, walking the jury through each query, each timestamp, each horrifying progression, from how long before a body smells to dismemberment techniques. Crime scene analyst Matthew Sheehan testified about the blood evidence, the luminol reactions, the DNA matches. Teresa Marchese, Anna's supervisor at Tishman Speyer, testified about Anna's professionalism, her upcoming meetings, her life insurance policy. Anna's friends testified about the affair, the divorce plans, Anna's fear that Brian would make things difficult if she left him. The defense argued there was no body, no murder weapon, no eyewitness, no definitive proof of how Anna died. Attorney Tracy Minor emphasized the circumstantial nature of the evidence. There is no indication of when she died or how she died, Minor argued. But the prosecution had something stronger than a body. They had Brian's own words typed into Google, creating a roadmap of premeditated murder. Prosecutor's closing argument. Ladies and gentlemen, the defendant didn't call 911 when his wife died. He called Google. At 4:55 a.m., he asked how long before a body smells. At 11:44 a.m., he asked how to clean blood from a wooden floor. At 1:21 p.m., he asked whether to throw away crime scene clothes or wash them. These are not the searches of a grieving husband. These are the searches of a man covering up murder. And when he was done searching, he went to Lowe's and bought exactly what Google told him he'd need. The jury deliberated for 9 hours over 2 days. On the 15th of December, 2025, they returned a verdict: guilty of first-degree murder. On the 18th of December 2025, Brian Walshie was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole, the mandatory sentence for first-degree murder in Massachusetts. Anna's mother, Milanka Ljubicic, spoke at the sentencing hearing via video from Serbia, her voice breaking. "Anna was my light. She was brilliant and strong, and she worked so hard for her boys. And this man, this monster, took her from us because he wanted money. He killed the mother of his children. He destroyed 3 little boys. And for what? Money he will never spend. A life insurance policy he will never collect. He has nothing now. He deserves nothing." The 3 Walshie boys, now ages 9, 7, and 5, are in the custody of the Massachusetts Department of Children and Families. They have not seen their father since January 2023. Local families have expressed interest in adopting all 3 boys together so the siblings can stay united. The Brian Walshie case set a legal precedent in Massachusetts, a murder conviction without a body, relying almost entirely on digital evidence. Legal experts testified before Congress in March 2024, using the Walshie case as an example of how modern technology has transformed criminal investigations. Prosecutor Lynn Beeland, who tried the case, stated, "20 years ago, this case would have been nearly impossible to prosecute. No body, no murder weapon, no confession. But today, we have digital breadcrumbs." Brian Walshie's Google searches gave us a minute-by-minute timeline of exactly what he did, when he did it, and how he planned it. Technology became our witness. Defense attorneys nationwide have raised concerns about the precedent. If Google searches alone can convict someone of murder, what happens to the presumption of innocence? What happens when someone searches morbid topics out of curiosity, not intent? But in Brian Walshie's case, the searches weren't abstract. They corresponded perfectly with the timeline of Anna's disappearance, the purchases at Lowe's, the blood evidence in the basement, the dismemberment tools found in dumpsters, the disposal of body parts. The searches weren't evidence in isolation. They were the blueprint that connected every other piece of evidence into one coherent, horrifying story. Brian Walshie currently serves his life sentence at MCI Cedar Junction in Walpole, Massachusetts. He continues to file appeals, claiming his trial was unfair, that the Google searches were taken out of context, that he deserves a new trial. Anna Walshie's body has never been recovered. Prosecutors believe her remains were disposed of in multiple commercial dumpsters that were later emptied into regional landfills across Massachusetts. The sheer volume of waste makes recovery virtually impossible. Her 3 sons visit a memorial bench installed in Cohasset's Town Park, where a plaque reads, "Anna Walshie, beloved mother, forever loved." On the morning of the 1st of January 2023, Anna Walshie went to bed believing she had her whole life ahead of her. A successful career, 3 beautiful boys, plans to finally leave a marriage that had died years earlier. She was 39 years old. She was ready to start over. She had no idea that while she slept, her husband was already Googling how to make her disappear. At 4:55 a.m., Brian Walshie asked Google, "How long before a body starts to smell?" Anna had been dead for less than an hour. The basement stairs were covered in her blood. The knife in the sink was still wet, and Brian Walshie was already planning the cover-up, one search query at a time. Technology doesn't lie. Google doesn't forget. And somewhere in a Massachusetts landfill, a brilliant 39-year-old mother of 3 rests in pieces because a man with nothing to lose Googled everything he needed to know to commit the perfect murder. Except he forgot one thing. Google keeps receipts. This is Anna's story. This is Anna's justice. This is what happens when a murderer builds his own prosecution, one search query at a time.